And Disney decided to hire the most insufferable girl boss narcissist that exists on Earth, who hates Snow White.
Movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Rachel Zegler's unexpected and brutally honest Instagram live rant lit the fuse on what's now seen as the breaking point for the disastrous Snow White remake. Once celebrated as a rising star bringing a bold new vibe to the timeless fairy tale, Rachel suddenly became the center of a growing storm, targeted by both critics and disappointed fans. With movie theaters sitting nearly empty and the box office crashing fast, that initial buzz of excitement flipped into full-blown panic. The film's shocking collapse had Hollywood insiders scrambling for answers, looking beyond just a failed marketing strategy to understand how it all went so wrong.
Rachel Zegler, who Disney decided would be brilliant in casting because, as Rachel Zegler says, her millions of fans will line up no matter what she does to see her.
The situation took a sharp turn when Zegler jumped on social media and appeared to go head-to-head with the very legacy that made Snow White a beloved classic for generations. Her live stream comments, slamming critics, brushing off some of the story's timeless elements, and pushing back hard against negative feedback only poured fuel on the fire. The backlash exploded, setting off a full-blown Hollywood mess that's now being held up as a textbook example of what not to do.
That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
At first glance, it looked like your typical Hollywood reboot, a beloved classic reimagined for a modern audience, packed with stunning visuals, bold new themes, and a vibrant cast meant to breathe fresh life into the story. But somewhere along the way, things went off the rails, turning what could have been a heartfelt tribute into a harsh reminder of how quickly a treasured legacy can be overshadowed by controversy.
I'd say that this is one of Disney's biggest regrets ever. I mean, I checked, we've discussed it before, I checked Rotten Tomatoes, and the score is even lower than the last time we talked.
At the heart of this unfolding drama is an actress who never held back, speaking out on everything from the tone of the original film to broader social issues. At first, the public found her bold honesty refreshing, but over time, that candidness started to feel more like open contempt. Or at least, that's how many people began to see it.
Movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to
When she called the original storyline outdated and in desperate need of a complete overhaul, her Instagram live outburst quickly became the defining moment of all the chaos and confusion surrounding the film. Zegler went from confidently hyping up the movie's potential to unloading her frustration, lashing out at critics, and even taking jabs at elements of the classic that fans had cherished for decades.
Uniquely unlikable, but then it is actually a terrible film as well, so it's the double whammy.
Clips from the live stream spread online within minutes, capturing her voice thick with frustration. Before the movie even hit theaters, she claimed her version would bring Snow White into a bold new era. But once the disappointing box office numbers dropped, her shift in tone was impossible to ignore. The conversation quickly moved from hopeful predictions to picking apart what went wrong, and how that live stream may have sealed the film's fate in the public eye.
Dwarfs, because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
It's important to highlight just how bleak the movie's box office numbers were right out of the gate. Industry insiders noticed that early screenings drew far smaller crowds than expected, and even a massive marketing push, rumored to cost a fortune, did little to spark interest. The gap between the film's high hopes and the harsh reality of half-empty theaters left people scrambling for answers.
Controversies surrounding Disney's Snow White remake show that we are still in the thick of the culture war.
Some pointed fingers at the revamped storyline, which toned down or completely scrapped romantic elements that were key to the 1937 classic. Others believed the real issue was the star's public persona, which seemed to clash with what many fans hoped for, a more respectful tribute to a beloved piece of cinematic history.
Then Rachel Zegler plays Snow White. I think Gal plays the. I was not a child, so I don't follow.
Out of everything that unfolded, the most explosive moment was undeniably the Instagram Live session. In the widely shared clips, Zegler looked visibly shaken as she reacted to the growing narrative blaming her for the film's downfall. Her frustration came through loud and clear. Some even pointed out the sharp glare she gave the camera as she called out critics, accusing those who opposed the film's changes of being stuck in the past.
Zegler, being 23 or whatever she is, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantata is the only global solution.
Rather than calming the backlash, her outburst only added fuel to the fire, reinforcing the growing belief that she came across as arrogant. A small group praised her for standing her ground, but the much louder majority felt she was only making things worse by mocking a beloved story cherished by millions. Critics jumped in too, pointing out that in several interviews, Zegler seemed to dismiss core elements of the original tale that once made Snow White so beloved.
So the two stars hate each other, and then they couldn't put dwarf.
She had brushed off the prince as irrelevant, mocked the idea of romantic longing, and repeatedly framed the original film's elements as outdated relics. While she may have intended her comments to feel modern or empowering, many people took them as dismissive and condescending. After all, the magic of the 1937 classic was rooted in themes like hope, love, and the comforting belief that kindness would ultimately win.
It's just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarves want to work.
By labeling those elements as outdated, the film ended up alienating audiences who just wanted a glimpse of the old magic to remain. What hit theaters felt more like a project caught in an identity crisis, a whirlwind of awkward changes, and combative publicity. Rumors of major reshoots began to swirl. Some said they were meant to adjust the tone, while others believed the goal was to fix storylines that didn't land well with test audiences.
Golden employment opportunity for dwarves.
There's not that many scripts that come down the pike.
No, there's 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarves.
Costs reportedly skyrocketed, pushing the studio's break-even target into the stratosphere. Insiders hinted that the already hefty budget might have nearly doubled when marketing expenses and the potential costs of rework were factored in. As expected, Zegler's Meltdown hit at the worst possible moment, just when the studio was scrambling to salvage whatever they could from the film's reputation.
Really, no offense to anything. They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that in backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing?
Instead, her outburst became the centerpiece of viral memes and endless chatter across entertainment sites. It's important to emphasize that the film's failure wasn't caused by a single factor. While Zegler's outspoken stance on the source material clearly sparked controversy, the film's content itself played a major role in leaving audiences disappointed.
Dwarves, okay?
Okay, but what do they call them?
Why
now,
would they
too?
get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical.
Nostalgia holds massive power, and this reimagining seemed to either water down or completely replace too many iconic moments. Take the dwarfs, for example. Reports say they were reworked in ways that made fans question if these changes truly served the story or were just hollow symbolic gestures. Similarly, the absence of a genuine romantic plot left some feeling that the adaptation missed the emotional depth that made the original stand out as more than just a cartoon.
It should have been from Peter Dinklage. There's power of being on TV, there's power of television, and to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power.
Social media only made things worse, blowing everything out of proportion. People posted photos of empty theaters on opening night, while users shared screenshots from Zegler's Instagram Live, analyzing every detail for clues about her true, emotional state. The meltdown ended up overshadowing any positive aspects the film might have had, whether it was in its cinematography or musical composition.
If the story is offensive, change the story, don't change the character.
The online commentary quickly turned that single livestream into a symbol of the lead actress's frustration with criticism and her reluctance to accept that some longtime fans might actually have valid points. Prominent voices jumped into the debate, including some who usually support progressive takes on classic stories. They expressed disappointment that the film's messaging felt too heavy-handed, warning that it lost the whimsical charm that's at the heart of fairy tales.
Tell us a little bit about your version of Snow White.
Yeah, I mean, Snow White is the girl you remember, but she's definitely made for the modern age, and there's such an emphasis on what it really means to be the fairest of them all.
On the flip side, traditionalists saw the Meltdown as further proof of disrespect toward the story's legacy. Rather than bridging the gap between the original material and modern perspectives, the adaptation seemed to drive an even deeper wedge between those who couldn't reconcile the new direction with their deep affection for the original. During the Instagram broadcast, Zegler appeared to blame the film's poor reception on the wave of negativity, implying critics weren't giving the project a fair chance. Meanwhile, reviewers argued the film lacked substance, pointing to a muddled tone, characters that felt more like vehicles for modern messages than real people, and a story that lacked genuine connection. As Zegler continued to dismiss any valid criticisms, the public began to view her as arrogant, which only fueled the negative cycle surrounding the movie. This perception likely discouraged even curious viewers from seeing the film. The bad press grew worse when fragments of the creative team's social media history resurfaced, revealing politically charged comments. While everyone is entitled to their views, such statements risk alienating large portions of the audience, especially when the film's financial situation was already shaky. Zegler's Instagram Live meltdown became the breaking point, providing critics with a clear focal point to explain the disconnect between the star and potential viewers. Before long, the press was calling it one of Hollywood's biggest flops in recent history, with opening weekend numbers that were shockingly low.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
In the weeks that followed, the outlook grew even bleaker as ticket sales continued to nosedive. Industry experts began to question whether the parent company might shelve similar upcoming projects or completely rethink its approach to live action remakes. Behind the scenes, some insiders suggested that Zegler's Meltdown and the firestorm it ignited could make studios far more hesitant to cast actors who might alienate loyal fan bases. In a time when Hollywood banks on beloved stories to captivate new generations, there's growing concern that one star's combative attitude can cause lasting damage that even the most expensive marketing campaign can't undo. Long after the IA dust settled, conversations persisted around what truly fueled Zegler's fiery outburst. Some believed she had a sincere desire to push modern narratives forward. Others suspected she was chasing the limelight without realizing how deeply fans cherished the original. Either way, the Meltdown kept playing on repeat, cementing its place in one of the most talked about PR disasters in recent memory.
Different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows?
Every moment of Zegler's Meltdown was dissected, some searching for signs of regret, others spotting unwavering defiance. To some viewers, it felt like a raw, if poorly delivered, glimpse into just how deeply she believed in reinventing the story. But to critics, it marked the final nail in the coffin of a remake that never quite found solid ground. The entire saga became a striking example of Hollywood's complicated dance with nostalgia. Snow White isn't just a movie, it's a cherished piece of childhood for generations. Any remake must carefully balance honoring that legacy while daring to explore new ground. But when the pendulum swings too far toward what feels like mockery or outright dismissal of the past, many in the audience are bound to push back. And in this case, tossing aside the core elements that made the original so magical struck a nerve that couldn't be ignored.
I'm here with you to cry, to yell, to hug, to wax poetic on how the left continues to fail us in forging a new path forward. This loss should not have been, and it certainly should not have been by so many votes. I echo Ethel Cain's statement.
Zegler's fiery defense of the film's changes on social media may have been the moment that truly sealed its fate in the eyes of the public. Behind the scenes, her meltdown reportedly caused rifts within the production team. Some crew members felt that her very public outburst shifted the spotlight away from the movie itself and onto her personal image at the worst possible time. Just when the team needed unity to rally audiences, the focus became Zegler's persona instead. Studio execs had likely been hoping for a more diplomatic approach, one that acknowledged fan concerns while still extending a welcoming hand to viewers. But instead of diffusing the controversy, her response only magnified it. Critics now had even more ammo, pointing to what they saw as blatant disregard for the heart of Snow White. The fallout also sparked whispers of tension between Zegler and other cast or crew members, though much of that remains unconfirmed. Still, rather than standing as a united front against disappointing box office numbers, the cast appeared splintered, and fans took notice.
Dwarf, they're out of work. They're replaced by CGI things. Like, this is just a perfect example. When there's there's no guiding principle, just progress for the sake of progress, and you're just trying to weave around offense after offense.
The live stream painted a striking picture. An actor standing solo, openly criticizing part of the fan base for not embracing her vision of a modernized take. By the end of its run, the film was headed toward losses in the hundreds of millions. A financial flop so massive it became a spectacle in itself. But what truly set this failure apart was how the Meltdown gave those losses a face. This wasn't just another box office disaster, it was tied directly to Zegler's decision to scold longtime fans at a moment when the film desperately needed unity. Some compared it to other infamous Hollywood missteps, where an actor's off-screen behavior torpedoed a project's chances. The fallout from the Meltdown dominated headlines, drowning out any fair discussion of the film's artistic merits or flaws. It became less about the movie and more about a cautionary tale of how a single outburst can shift the entire narrative.
Hey, 7 dwarves is offensive to midgets. You're like, oh, okay, so let's just not employ any of them.
Yes, Peter Dinklage.
Some viewers who actually gave the movie a chance pointed out that it had moments of visual brilliance and impressive set design, but those details were completely drowned out by the non-stop buzz surrounding Zegler's online tirade. On social media, the Meltdown became a flashing billboard for everything people thought was wrong with the film. It reinforced the idea that the lead star was unwilling to hear out even the most heartfelt critiques of her modern twist. One major theme in the Backlash? A glaring lack of humility. Rather than acknowledging that fans might genuinely treasure things like classic romance, Zegler came off as dismissive, even contemptuous, of their preferences. Social media is meant to bring stars closer to their audience, but in this case, it did the opposite. It turned a conversation into a confrontation and widened the divide instead of closing it.
Snow White, let's go through this, right? There's no prince. Woman doesn't need a prince.
Oh, Lord.
Really? Okay, good luck back then.
The Meltdown quickly became a vivid, unforgettable symbol of the divide, far more impactful than any text post or polished PR statement ever could be. In the weeks that followed, the spotlight shifted to what this disaster might mean for Zegler's future in Hollywood. Industry insiders began whispering that the controversy might make major studios think twice about working with her, now that her name was so closely tied to the Backlash. Others suggested there was still hope for redemption if she took a more thoughtful, measured approach when tackling iconic stories going forward. But the overwhelming impression she left was one of unshakable stubbornness. Even as outrage surged, Zegler refused to soften her stance on the original story, and while conviction can be admirable, her aggressive criticism and apparent disregard for Snow White's timeless charm left a sour taste for many. Ironic posts started flooding social media, thanking her for saving them the ticket money on a movie they now believed had completely missed the magic of the original.
Need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
To many critics, the Meltdown served as undeniable proof that the film carried a dismissive tone toward traditional storytelling. Any remaining curiosity people might have had was effectively snuffed out before the movie even hit theaters. On a broader level, this moment spotlighted just how delicate nostalgia is in modern entertainment. Snow White isn't just a fairy tale, it's a core memory for generations. Remakes can succeed when they honor that emotional connection, even while updating certain elements to reflect today's world. But when reboots come across as condescending, viewers often don't just walk away, they push back. Zegler's unfiltered, scathing reaction became the ultimate example of how fast things can unravel when a film appears to mock the very legacy that gave it meaning.
And I get it, there's a difference between spoiling and whatever, but to go out and badmouth everybody and talk smack about, older movies in the same franchise, the canon story, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I feel like they would have...
Insiders hinted that the Meltdown only made things worse behind the scenes. What might have been just a disappointing box office run quickly spiraled into full-blown controversy. Instead of rallying around the film's positive aspects, the focus shifted to rumored drama on set and rising tensions among the production team. Zegler, taking a solo stance in public, unintentionally drove a wedge between the film and longtime fans who were simply craving something familiar and heartfelt. The Meltdown took on a life of its own, becoming Hollywood folklore. It wasn't just about a movie that lost hundreds of millions anymore. It was a cautionary tale of what happens when internal conflict goes public and overshadows everything else.
Girl took the money and then decided that she wanted to go out there. You know what? I'm going to take my stand. Well, you should have made that stand before you took the money to promote a film, because that's not in line with your job.
The Meltdown that shook Hollywood. How one live stream tanked a Disney giant. What began as a highly anticipated reboot of a beloved fairy tale quickly spiraled into one of the most talked about disasters in recent memory. Rachel Zegler's Instagram Live, which was meant to connect with fans and promote her modern take on Snow White, did the exact opposite. It became a lightning rod for Backlash that swallowed any hope of box office success. From the moment she went live, Zegler's tone struck a nerve. She didn't just defend the film's bold changes, she doubled down, dismissing longtime fans' love for the original as outdated and irrelevant. Viewers who grew up adoring the timeless innocence of Snow White felt personally attacked. And the internet, as it often does, exploded. In the days that followed, it wasn't the film's visuals, performances, or music-making headlines. It was the Meltdown. The emotional outburst became the centerpiece of every conversation surrounding the movie. Instead of drawing audiences in, Zegler's words pushed them away. Some critics argued she was passionate about reimagining the classic story. Others saw it as arrogance, plain and simple. Industry insiders revealed the fallout behind the scenes was just as chaotic. Crew members were reportedly blindsided, feeling Zegler's rant took a controllable situation, a lukewarm response to a bold remake, and turned it into a public relations nightmare. The film needed unity. Instead, it got a very public fracture. Box office projections plummeted. Opening weekend was a disaster, and losses quickly soared into the hundreds of millions. And while the film had a few redeeming features, lavish set design, striking visuals, none of it mattered. All of it was drowned out by the narrative surrounding Zegler's viral tirade. On social media, the story took on a life of its own. Memes, think pieces, reaction videos. The Meltdown became pop culture canon. What should have been a footnote in a list of ambitious but flawed remakes became the example of how not to handle fan backlash. It was no longer just a movie flop, it was a cautionary tale. Some of Zegler's co-stars tried to course correct. In interviews, they sidestepped the controversy and praised the original 1937 film. But the damage had been done. The public had made up its mind. Zegler's refusal to acknowledge fans' emotional ties to the original came off not as artistic conviction, but as contempt. The Meltdown didn't just hurt the film's numbers, it ignited a broader debate in Hollywood about the fragile balance between nostalgia and modernization. Audiences are often open to new interpretations, but when those reinterpretations mock or reject what made the original special, backlash is inevitable. In Zegler's case, that backlash became her legacy, at least for now. Some speculate she may recover, especially if future projects showcase a more tactful, collaborative tone. Others say the industry will tread carefully before entrusting her with another cherished franchise. One thing is clear, the live stream wasn't just a moment. It was the moment, a defining, emotionally raw misstep that turned a struggling project into a legendary fiasco. And while the movie itself may fade into obscurity, the Meltdown will remain a permanent fixture in the cultural memory of modern Hollywood.